Hi there, I'm Acting Crimes, or Air, if you prefer.
I'm Embers Tide, or Embers.
I am Jerica.
And I'm Jay, your DM, and this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions to retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
Jazz hands.
We're back.
I just have to say, Embers, I'm extending the hand of friendship to you.
I warily and meekly approach the hand, considering could this be a trap?
Truly, if it were a trap, she would have
I
extended...
want to roleplay this, Air.
Listen, I'm table talking, and I know you would have extended the axe of friendship.
Air, we're busy.
Okay,
Damn,
sorry.
it was my right hand. And then I smile warmly at Embers.
Maybe he should roll an insight check.
Whoa!
So meta.
Yeah.
All right, guys, welcome back. We had a week off, which we didn't actually take off. We just lost. The
Professional.
curse of episode 10
boy.
strikes again.
Ask us later.
It's true. But that week off has left us rejuvenated, refreshed, revitalized,
Younger, even.
other rewords,
Rewound.
rebooted. This is actually a new cast. We hired all new Jerikas and Airs.
Yes, I am brand new and even shiny.
It's true. But last time we ended up with 3 boys and a Haley, and this time we got 3 boys and a Jerika. It's like we can't break this 3 boys curse.
Too many boys.
It is too many boys. And they're just sufficient boys.
They're enough in the boy category.
Exactly. That's a joke you won't get because the podcast it was from got destroyed.
Womp, womp.
Womp womp. All right, guys. This week, because we are great at timing things, the new episodes of Critical Role and C-Team finally return.
Boy.
It's time for D&D 2, the return of D&D. That's right, guys. D&D is back.
Bigger and better than ever.
It is.
Wait, are we calling it D2?
No, that's been taken by a much more successful franchise of
Okay.
ice skating ducks.
Just checking. Emilio Estevez, he's gonna come to where you live. He's gonna find you.
That's
And I
the
will
constant
murder him.
worry.
Yeah.
I look out the window, I'm just constantly afraid Emilio Estevez is going to be out there. All right. So, Critical Role and C-Team are coming back in the same week. My Thursdays have not been the same since these 2 great tastes that taste great together have left my life. I've missed having Matthew Mercer and Jerry Holkins on my screen every Thursday, haven't you guys?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, yes and no. Because I have not yet tapped into Critical Role, so that's why I'm so excited.
I am in the same
about the
small
clean slate that we're
boat
getting.
with Embers. I don't think
Well-
we're sinking yet.
Well, welcome to a brand new boat, because Critical Role is coming back with an all-new season with all new characters at level 2!
I have partaken of the silhouettes. I see them. There are some tall people. There are some small people. There's horns aplenty. I see weapons. I see clothing. I think we're in for some good stuff. There's hair. I see hair.
They deliver.
This one got away from you a little bit.
You must be a champ at Guess Who.
Yeah,
Does your
exactly.
person have any swords?
Oh my
Boots?
goodness.
Are there boots? Yes, there are boots.
Faerun Guess Who is a Kickstarter I would aggressively support.
Yeah. So yes, so I think I'm the only other one on the podcast who has watched the Critical Role. I actually got into Critical Role because I was looking for something D&D related to watch or listen to while doing things after I worked my way through all of the ACK content. And it is a very different game, but it is very, very good. I think it's probably, if I were trying to introduce anyone to D&D, there are a few choice Critical Role episodes that I would probably show them, because I think Jerry Holkins of ACK Inc., and particularly the C-Team fame, runs a very Jerry Holkins kind of game. It's got a lot of eldritch horror. It's got a lot of really wacky, off-the-wall stuff. and it takes the elements of D&D and really plays with them. You know, like in Matt Mercer's game on Critical Role, the Beholder is the kind of terrifying thing you find at the bottom of a crypt, in the bottom of a lake, and it is a big boss battle. In Jerry Holkin's game, it's something that shows up on a cruise ship. So they're very different games. I think Critical Role is a little bit, I don't want to say like truer to, but tries to tap into more of that classic D&D feel. It's very much an epic dramatic fantasy. It's Lord of the Rings. It's you know, all of those kind of high fantasy things. Whereas AC Inc. and the C Team in specific is very much kind of slapsticky and comedic and table talky and super fun in that regard. So if you like good
I hear
art,
what you're saying there.
yeah.
And I'm terrified.
Why is that?
The Draika human prefers her high fantasy with a little bit of something else. So, for example, I'm not like the biggest Lord of the Rings book fan. I struggled through Sword of Truth. I've struggled through a lot of the first chapter of a lot of high fantasy. I have to say probably my favorite fantasy series is Discworld. And that's extremely tongue-in-cheek and dry British humory. So I will, of course, give the new exciting Critical Role a shot, but I am very skeptical.
Let me throw a pitch at you, Draika, and see how it tickles your fancy.
Yeah.
Imagine a Tolkien world full of beauty, splendor, majesty, but instead of your point of view characters being characters from that world, imagine that you had 6 goofball voice actors from our world.
That's a premise.
Exactly. They are new to this in the same way that the viewer is new to this, at least in the first season.
No, I could definitely get into like a whatever that freaking movie was where the knights go back in time thing scenario with D&D where it's humans trying to figure things out.
There's some meta contextuality. They're making jokes about the setting, but then in character, they're very deep in role play. So there's some very emotional scenes. There's very deep connections between the characters, and then they'll step back for Sam Riegel to make a joke about how a beholder's one eye would get poked out by something, or something along those lines.
Are you saying watching D&D streams is actually like watching 2 narratives at once?
It is, surprisingly. Sometimes 3. If you have Ryan Hartman making jokes on the side that you can't catch the first time.
That's absolutely true. I never thought of that. But watching a D&D stream is like watching, you know, actors in a film and their episode of Behind the Actors Studio all at the same time.
And then if you're watching Stranger Things, it's also this other meta scenario. And then it's like the actors' actual lives too. Oh boy, my brain.
Right, but Critical Role is by far one of the most engaging shows I've ever watched at times. But it's a 5-hour show every week. There's a lot of drag time too, and so it can be kind of different to watch if you're not used to it. I prefer watching it live, even though if you miss something, you're gonna miss something. I feel like nobody really pays attention to something for 5 hours straight, so even if you watch it as a stream later, you're probably gonna check out during some scenes and check back in and be listening I think it's better consumed as a podcast over the course of several days, which is why it's a better show once you're caught up than it is trying to catch up. Because trying to catch up all at once, it's just like, you feel like you have to, by necessity, skip some scenes because it's just so much.
So, Jay, would you recommend this new season be consumed by podcast, you know, from the get-go?
I hope to God that they start releasing podcasts right away this time, unlike last time where they waited until the show was over before they finished doing all the podcasts. Because I think it's such a better show when you can listen to an hour on Monday, an hour on Tuesday, an hour on Wednesday, and then an hour on Thursday, and then Thursday night you can watch some more. Or just catch it live and catch what you don't. You can go back to the podcast and check out later.
# better show.
4.5 hours. It's a long show. 5 hours on a crazy night. It's just a lot.
It's a lot to take in. It's a lot of content.
It is. So I think it's better when you're caught up. That's why I think the new season's going to help a lot of people. And I think it's better as a podcast. What do you think, Eric? Did you feel like it was a lot when you were catching up?
I would say that when I really got into it, I was so thankful to have a backlog to go through. Because like I'd be doing chores or I'd be working out or something like that. And I always had something to listen to. And I subscribed on to Geek and Sundry, the channel on Twitch that it's on. And then you can listen to it as a podcast through the Twitch app. So I was doing that, and then when I ran out, I was like, "Oh, I I gotta wait. It sucked.
Did you feel like you watched every scene intently, or did you just kind of listen in the background and then check in the intenser moments and then check out a little bit?
Yeah, I like whenever they had a big battle scene, I would make sure to watch it. Like no spoilers, but they had a big like battle in a city against one of the characters from the parties, like a character from their backstory, and it was a super tactical, super huge battle, and that I wanted to watch because it was really hard to kind of visualize everything because there was just so many moving pieces,
and it was just a really good fight.
Oh, it was really cool. Like
Do
the way
they have maps?
Yeah, they have. Dwarven Forge has hooked them up with some crazy stuff for battle maps.
Yeah. Matt goes out of the way to like custom make scenery and stuff like that. It's intricately painted miniatures. It's really good. He put some production value into that show.
So if I could say one thing, I say it works totally well as a radio play. You can listen to it, and really, I listen to it a lot on commutes and whatnot, and I don't feel like I really missed anything from not having the visuals. That said, because these people are all actors, they emote, and they're super funny, and they're great to watch. If I could recommend one thing, if you're wondering, should I get into Critical Role, and what would be a good litmus test for that, the series of episodes I would recommend are Trial of the Take Parts 1 and 2. They have Felicia Day, the queen of all geekdom, Felicia Day, on as a guest player. And it's just a few of the players from the game, and it's kind of a somewhat an enclosed little mini campaign, mini adventure within the overall arc. I think it's a really good taste. It's super funny. There's some really cool combat.
And they're kind of between arcs at that point,
yeah.
So it's a good jumping in point where you can actually follow the progression of the plot.
Yeah, and if at any rate you see some people you're familiar with, and it's a fun narrative, and they immediately jump into some really great dynamics. So that would be my suggestion.
Or you can catch the brand new season starting this Thursday.
I have one final question, and it is the most important question.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if any of you will be able to answer it. As an intense Overwatch tryhard, does McCree ever show up in Critical Role?
He does at one point say it's high noon.
Yes, he does.
I will watch that over and over again.
Also, they had Darren DePaul on, who plays
Reinhardt.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then they got to nerd out doing some character voice stuff. It was pretty funny.
That sounds
so
great.
I've never watched the show, but I follow a lot of the accounts on Twitter, and just seeing Darren DePaul like invade all their streams was heartwarming. Like
I'm going
to geeking out there.
I'm going to sound totally sacrilegious right now, but here's how I enjoy the show, and maybe this will be a way that somebody else can enjoy the show as well. I follow the Crit Roll Stats Twitter, and it gives little play-by-play posts as they go through the episode. And then when things start to look really interesting, I'll check over it and start watching again. And then, like, when things start getting a little slow again, I'll kind of check out and start doing other stuff that I need to do. And doing that, I can watch an episode without feeling like I missed too much. And then if there's, like, something that I did miss that I want to, like, I'm reading the play-by-play and I say, oh, I wish I'd seen that. I can go back in the video later and watch it. I think that's an invaluable service for a 5-hour show. Yeah. But let's talk about a show that's half as long, but twice as many of us have watched. C-Team! That's right, the C-Team is also coming back this week. God, guys, how did we survive a whole 2 months without either of these shows?
Was this one long night without
them? They produced a lot of content for us in between, and there was some AMAs, and there was some lovely Simo stream watching hosted by Jay, the beautiful Jay.
How sweet.
And there was also some, what was it? The Christmas content.
And Critical Role had the one-shots.
Oh, and Waffles Inc. How many of you
Waffles Inc.
enjoyed Waffles Inc? I loved Waffles.
If you don't know anything that we're talking about, you should check out Acink Updates, who tweets out all these events.
Who?
Acink Updates.
No, I was gonna say, why are you speaking of yourself in the third person?
No one can ever know.
Listen, Acting Updates and Jay are two different individuals. I don't know where you got this
They
preposterous
just have
notion
to.
just because
I've never seen Hacking Updates and Jay in the same place at the same time.
This is correct.
He heads deep into the Acting Updates cave, where he dons the mask and assumes the power of his ancestors. Acting Updates!
His parents were killed by numbers.
Yeah.
My parents were killed by the gap between the original Acking and then the new Acking C-Team.
That is an incredibly esoteric thing to be murdered by, I gotta say.
It is! C-Team is coming back. Of course, we all love the C-Team. We don't need an excuse to become a C-Team fan cast, but the return of our favorite show is as good an excuse as we're ever going to get. So obviously, Critical Role has one advantage over C-Team coming back this season, and that's that it's coming back to a brand new series. So it's easy to jump in now. With C-Team, you're coming back into Season 2. You might be thinking, oh gosh, this episode came out Wednesday and the new series starts on Thursday, but actually it doesn't start until Sunday, because they're going to do a live show in PAX South to bring back the second season. But even so, you only have 3 days to watch through an entire season of content? No, because we're going to give you our favorite C-Team episodes as a brief introduction into the show, so that you can feel like you know a little bit about what's going on, and then jump right into the new season. So these are going to be our best episodes for introducing you to this content. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the easy ones, which is the Z-Caps. Obviously, you should watch the Z-Caps. They are animated by Zebashu. We will link them on our Twitter. They are short, brief versions of the first 10 episodes in little 3-minute cartoons. They are absolutely wonderful, incredibly animated, and beautiful ways to get a taste of the flavor of the show and of the humor of the show, while also getting some of the amazing artistic talents of Zebashu on display. Truly, truly a incredible contribution to the community. That being said, what are some episodes that we would recommend for people to watch to get kind of a taste for the show? 3 episodes each.
If I may, Jay, I was just going to say Zebashu, Zebashew on YouTube. Yes, I said Zed. It's the right pronunciation. Y'all can deal with it.
Well, pronunciation isn't the right pronunciation. So
Oh!
you can do it.
It's getting grammatical up in here.
Anyway.
Alright, my 3 episodes, I think are the most important 3 episodes to watching the show. Doomgate Inn, Part 3. Second one is The House Wins, Part 3. And then the last one is Paterfamilias, Part 4. Why do I think those are the most important episodes? Because those are the episodes with Brahma in it.
Oh, shit. Is Brahma your favorite character?
Brahma is my favorite.
Nice.
Specifically, my favorite is the relationship between Brahma and Walnut. I think that it's so interesting. I think that it's heartwarming. I love these characters. I love this setting. And I love this story. And I love. So I would like to watch these all the time.
OTP.
They're the best. So Brahma is a luthier. Her name is Brahma Luthier. She is a member of Team Bellerophon, and she is a bard who comes into and out of one of the main character Walnut's life with a flash of panache every single time, and leaves us always wanting more. It's a romance that is as strange and somewhat dark as it is deeply fascinating and intensely rewarding. It's emotional, but at the same time silly and playful. It is a wonderful D&D romance, and I absolutely love these characters, and I absolutely love the way that it's played out in the stream. Everybody's been super supportive of it, and it's been a really great opportunity for Walnut's character to shine in a way that she doesn't normally. You know, it takes the focus off of her backstory and gives her a different way to manifest in the stream as a different kind of character, as someone who's not as in control of her emotions, as someone who's not as stoic or quiet.
So there's definitely parts of the series, maybe like 20 to 30 minute parts in several episodes that I really have enjoyed immensely. Things like the end of Homecoming and Donar going on his beer trip, and
so that would be Homecoming Part 6 for the end of Homecoming.
Being pulled into a lovely restaurant to have a tete-a-tete with a drow lady.
So that is The House Wins Part 3?
Yes, but I would say if we're talking about a breadth of content or a flavor for C-Team, I would say start with Last Stone's Day 1, 2, 3. They mix it up, they do some different things, and it launches you straight into Anchors Away, which is probably my favorite arc.
And it's a good place to pick up after watching the Z-Caps as well. If you go from the Z-Caps to Last Day into Anchors Away, you're getting a pretty good view of the series.
Yeah, especially with the skill challenge. I think it's in part 3.
Oh yeah, that's straight out of 4th edition.
Also, I really liked N Team, which is a team of 3 that you meet in Anchors Away. And Dreebus is back, so you get a little rev, in your engine from Last Stone's Day. Jay, insert a revving engine sound here.
Oh, editing cues! I've never had these before, and I never wanted them.
And then you launch right into Anchors Away.
And another thing that's special about Last Stone's Day that I don't know if you guys recall, but that's actually when we started playing the F list.
Aww.
And if you're not familiar, the F-List is our game that we play together.
The skill challenge in episode 2 of Last Stone's Day that inspired the getting out of the manacles segment in our first game, which was we affectionately refer to as the Grub Club.
Yeah, he started that game, as we mentioned,
Yes,
bound and
Grub
gagged on Omen's personal sex dungeon
Bound
ship.
and gagged.
Well, okay. Well, you could have stopped that about halfway through that sentence.
I didn't, though.
Woo, 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 woo.
I'm just going to edit all of Air's words into just like, Jay is the best, and I love him.
Jay is the best, and I love him.
Well, you made it too easy now. I'm going to do something else.
That wasn't too
All
hard.
right. Who's next?
You want me to go?
I want you to go.
All right, here I go. I'm going. I'll need a little bit of help because I'm
That's okay. I happen to run Acking updates,
about episodes.
so I know a
but
little bit.
The things that for me are always most resonant are when you have particularly strong interactions. So for me, the introduction of one of Rosie Beestinger's many children, Rosie Beestinger played by Kate Welch, the child Dreebus Beestinger played by Patrick Rothfuss in one of sort of a repeating cameo role. The first time he comes in to the series, to me, fleshes out a lot of the interactions between the different characters and it really helps kind of start defining Rosie's character as this sort of not your grandma's grandma. So that's
Doomgate in part 1.
There you go. On the same note, I think Jay, your point about Brahma being one of the most important catalysts in the whole series, when Team Bellerophon is introduced to the group,
Doomgate in part 3.
that's that there's a lot of action in that episode.
Oh, that episode's incredible.
It's packed, and a lot of it is really good, to me at least. So that's I'd recommend.
Oh, it is. You're 100% right. Doomgate in part 3 is probably one of the single best episodes of the show.
And then for me, it's a bit of a toss-up. So I'm going to adhere to the rules of 3 episodes only, and I'm going to go with the finale of Last Stone's Day. For the same reason as the group, I think it's a very important fulcrum point in the series. You get a lot of character expression, and it will, if it's the last of the 3 episodes you watch, it will probably get you hungry for the arc that follows.
Ah, that's a good point.
And the reason that it's a struggle for me is I really love some of the other guests. I love Cupid, one of the many
good, yeah.
lizard folk children of Dinar Blitzen. If you're hungry for more, I'd look for episodes that feature her.
Was that Anchors Away part 3? Part 4?
Yeah, I think it's 3 and 4, I believe, but
And I want to say Cupid, played by the incomparable Nika Harper.
Nika Harper.
Yes.
Oh man, she was so good.
She's
she came
the
in
best.
knowledgeable, prepared, and ready to kick ass.
yeah, she
A super fan,
tore
but
it up.
also a super storyteller, and she just lent to the whole narrative. I love it.
Oh, honestly, yeah, one of the best guests so far.
Yeah. And so for me, I listen almost exclusively. I don't watch. And when you hear her come on and the strength that she puts behind her character, just as a improvisational role player, it's awesome. It's so good.
She's just having the time of her life, and her laugh is just infectious.
Yeah, it is.
She was a great guest.
Oh, it is.
Those are my 3.
Air. You cannot hold it down any longer. You must release these episodes.
Back into the wild.
Back into the wild. Go, you're free now.
Where they belong.
I'm not quite sure but the same way that when we were talking about Critical Role, I was saying this episode, it was Trial of the Take Part 1 and 2 I was suggesting. So if I were to pick like a seminal, this is Dungeons and Dragons and I want to show it to you and I wanted to use the C team for it, I would be picking the episode, I'm not quite sure which one it is from Dungeons and Wagons, where they're actually out fighting goblins who've stolen a cart and there's this chase sequence. It felt very old school classic kind of D&D to me.
Dungeons and Wagons Part 2.
Dungeons and Wagons Part 2, yeah. So that felt absolutely core to me. You see a lot of, classic enemies. It's a classic scenario. You have the Dragonborn of the party melting goblins with their breath weapon. Like, it's all these classic
captured
D&D...
in living color by
Yes.
Zbashu.
Exactly, captured by Z perfectly. It was just really a seminal bit of D&D goodness. So I would recommend that as a great starting point. My second episode was, and again, Jay, I'm going to ask for your help. There's a moment when Walnut, who is a druid, who has lost her grove, but the druids of her grove, they worship two lover goddesses, one of which has disappeared, and that's a plot point for the show. But the spirit of the remaining goddess seizes upon her, and for a time in this spiritual, ripe with natural magic forest, she becomes an avatar of this god and reaches out to Cathris, who is a drow warlock played by Chris Stroud. And they have a kind of strange altercation, which is both kind of dark, but also kind of sweet and romantic, but strange in this kind of way of like, what would it be like to be taken over by a god? So it is very odd, but it is also very endearing in a really strange way. It's this weird mix of dark and light that I really enjoyed. Jay, which one was that?
I got this. I think. Anchors Away Part 1?
You're right. It's Anchors Away Part 1.
The third episode, which I love, which is the end of the Pater Familias arc, that involves Dinar, who is the Dragonborn of the party, played by Ryan Hartman. He has kind of this ersatz adoptive sort of daughter. It's a weird thing.
Ursat's daughter. Gosh. He's co-parenting with a lady Dragonborn because the kid likes him a lot.
Yes, imprinted on him because he saved said child when they were still egged. Yes, and there's a moment where said child, who is a Hellraiser, which is great, even as an infant, is walking along, teetering along the banister of a set of stairs, falls, and he just says, I just stick out an arm absent-mindedly, grab the child out of the air, and put him back down on the ground. And like the dad reflexes in me just kind of twinged as he described it, and like, been there, done that. That was a real slice of life kind of thing, because if you've got kids, you've caught them from cracking their head open at least once.
I believe that was Drawn Incorporated Part 1.
You are
if I remember
correct.
Correctly.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So that's our favorite episodes. Hopefully that gives you a place to start, dear listener. But let me just say, I strongly encourage you to start. Whereas I said that Critical Role can sometimes feel a bit long and can be kind of hard to manage, because it's only 2.5 hours as opposed to 5 hours. It's a lot more manageable chunks. The content is just as good. I think that the DM styles are vastly different, but the content itself is just as good, and I think that it is definitely worth a listen. Critical Role, I think, Air, you were saying this, Critical Role is D&D as perhaps it has been. It's like a great example of classic D&D. I think that C-Team is a great example of what D&D can be at your table. It is your iteration of this game that comes to your table and gets filtered through you to become something wholly unique. And I think that C-Team is wholly unique to Jerry Hawkins and his talented team. And gosh, it's a great show.
If I could say, if I were trying to draw up like a dichotomy between the two, Critical Role is the best RP I've ever seen in a D&D game. Acquisitions Incorporated, the C-Team included, is the best table talk I have ever seen in a D&D game.
I feel like Jerry forces them to do that, though, with the intricacy of the way he tells the story.
And I love the way he involves his players, too. He constantly says, tell me, what does that look like when you do that attack? Or tell me, how are you, like when he was doing the skill challenges in Last Stone's Day, where they had to bake these little round doughy confections, which I think were based on able skeevers.
They sure were. They were called cornerstones.
Cornerstones, yeah, these little pancake fritter things. And they were like using all their skills. So the monk of the party is doing flips and kicks, and the warlock is summoning eldritch tentacles to serve them to the guests. It was a crazy melange of different skill checks and whatnot, but he constantly tries to involve them in it. Constantly tries to get the player input on how they do X, Y, and Z.
All right, guys. Sometimes on this show, we answer questions, and this is one of those times.
Yay!
So we are going to answer a few questions we took this week about running your own C-Team game. We took a few cues from our Twitter feed, asked people what they needed to know when it came to running a C-Team game at their table, and this is the feedback that we got. How do you introduce the idea of the franchise to the group? What makes them want to follow that thread? So if you're thinking about running a Acquisitions Incorporated game, how do you introduce the idea of the incorporation of Acquisitions?
I liked it because I watched the C-Team and had background in Acquisitions Inc.
I honestly think that's the best way. I don't think you can play a C-Team or Ac Inc. game without players who have watched the C-Team or Ac Inc. and want to do that kind of story.
I think you can. I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about what if I were DMing a group, none of them had heard of the C-Team, and I was going to, unbeknownst to them, get them into a franchise, introduce them to what we know about the structure of Acquisition Incorporated, the different roles, the central corporate headquarters being an office you can communicate with in various ways. You could do it. I think it might need. It's not a thematic driver in and of itself if you have a group who's not familiar with it coming into the game. But it's a structure, it's a trope that could lead to some interesting stuff.
Absolutely. The episodic nature of it, I think, lends itself very well to Dungeons & Dragons because you have these jobs which have specific endpoints. You go out on them, you come back to them. It lends itself to a hub world and to early level play.
Yeah.
If I may say, the other good thing is if you are worried that you will have players that are unaware of the tropes of Acquisitions Incorporated, come by the C-Team on Reddit or come join the C-Team Fandom Shadow Council Discord server. There are constantly people asking for games. We've had games come together in the matter of moments. Jay ran a Spelljammer one-shot for some of the members of the Shadow Council a couple weeks ago just on a whim. So come and join us, and I'm sure you will find many people who are both familiar and looking for a game.
Is there a list of Ac Inc. roles with descriptions that I can use?
The lore is out there, mostly on the Twitters. I don't think they've been, brought together in one place for ease of use.
So there's Loremonger, who mongs lore.
Oh, come now. It's been suggested that they track and use knowledge about people's family ties and affiliations to the benefit of Acquisitions Incorporated.
Cartographer, who takes maps and also handles travel.
Has a special relationship with the animal adjacent pull creature that pulls
That may
the
be specific to Rosie.
Well, I think because of the pun, cartographer, there might have to be some sort of cart aspect to the job.
There's the Documancer, who records special information for the group, reports to the main branch, and generally gathers and performs the paperwork for the group.
AKA the walnut.
We also have the Hordes person.
The accountant manages the money and other party
Skims
wealth.
a little off the top.
Absolutely. I'm the Hordes person for our group, and I skim it all off the top. I've spent every red cent, every gold on myself.
The Occultant, who uses an oculant to track the moral alignment of the party by tracking kills, which is just as baffling to you, audience, as it is to those of us here on the podcast. We don't know what that means.
We've seen that in action that we're aware of yet.
And then we have the Obviator. They wreck shit. They are in charge of killing well.
Hey, Jereka, who's our Obviator?
Hey, it me!
The Queen of Murder.
Queen of
Sure
Murder.
am. I have to say, like, my favorite part so far of our game is me, like, shoving a ram into a cannon and having it
Yes.
That was
In the
fun.
That was pretty good.
In the podcast we lost, we spent a good few minutes going on about how much we love your obviations.
Well, you'll just
We
have
do.
to recreate it for me sometime.
Decisionist. I can't believe we skipped the decision. It's the most important one.
No, I would
I wouldn't
argue
tell the
that that's
decisionist that.
not
yeah.
true.
Decisionist gets to cast a tie-breaking vote in the event that the group is split, an important element to a 4-person party. The Decisionist can also requisition objects from Acquisitions Incorporated at higher levels. Another question that we received was that they were having trouble leveling up the jobs from Acquisitions Incorporated franchisees and how you go about with progression in that regard. And I thought that it would be kind of illuminating to talk a little bit about how I handle it. So there's a source book coming, according to Jerry. It's something that they're working on. They're having a lot of meetings about it. I don't know if it'll materialize.
We're
Right.
hungry for it. PA, we're hungry.
We're hungry. We're starving.
We're starving.
Please, feed us.
We're wasting away.
Don't stick me and Jiraika in a pod. We're just the worst together. With job progression in the show, what we know is Jerry Holkins believes that you need to display a moment of mastery over the role. And then there's also some other factors which I think go into it that Jerry is not as maybe keen to go into.
Transparent. I think transparent
Right.
is a good way
I
to
think
describe
that definitely Jerry Holkins has a time in the game where he thinks you need this job to advance. So like I think Horde's person, obviously Crithris exhibited some degree of mastery over the role earlier in the episode, in so much as when they got something he demanded it right away, which is what the Horde's person should do. But I don't think that he had demonstrated a love of the job the same way that Walnut had, or even Rosie had. But he got the first upgrade because I think that he just wanted them to have a bag of holding, which is what the second level Horde's person gets. So I think that there's definitely some pull and push in there. Some upgrades can come from necessity of the game. If you want your group to have a bag of holding, maybe you upgrade the Horde's person. But I think another good way is to just create a mini challenge in your head, which is what he had done for Rosie. He had created a chance where she understood a city without having to see a map, where she just innately understood it. And then Rosie rolled really well on her history check in this town as they were traveling through it, and so she upgraded. So, one example of that for my game is when Air, at King Crimes, he spent money on himself from the Horde's person bag because he thought he needed these things to be successful. And I thought that was a proper demonstration of what a Horde's person should do, which is to spend the party's money in things that help the party, at least in their mind. The Horde's person should be selfishly spending money on things that they think are useful, without necessarily needing to consult the group because they're the one in charge of that. And so I upgraded Air off of that single instance. Before we sat down that day, before he did that, I was not going to upgrade his character. Because he chose to do that, I chose to let his character upgrade as well.
I'll make sure to toss down a few copper to you from the top of my ivory tower, other friend.
Haley was the first one I was definitely going to upgrade, though, because she really took to the Documancy role. And in my game, Documancy pertains to taking brief notes about the previous game session, and I can always count on Haley having some notes ready when we go into the game about the previous week, or at the very least having them written down and then transcribing them later. She's always keeping up with the notes, and that's, in my game, what Documancy pertains to. She takes the notes for the group, and then she can also do in-game documancy as well. But her notes in the game are game world perspective. Those notes are her sending back to head office what's going on with the party. Head office knows what the party is up to at all times.
Can I just mention the joy of how you upgraded us? So we got upgraded in our AI roles by means of a mid-year performance review. So because we are set in the Moonshay Isles, our franchise works out of a boat. And so on that boat, a rocketing robot flew onto the deck. The Evalutron... How many thousand is it?
It was 5,000.
It's Valuetron 5,000. You know, it has to be several thousand better than the current year. And it gave us all performance reviews. And as Jay said, I got a promotion. Haley got a promotion. And then Jiraika had her interview. And how did that go for you, Jiraiya?
Oh, what's this? This is a cage. It's full of 2 birds. Right for you. Right for you.
Jiraiya got promoted laterally.
I actually enjoy Obviator more. I feel like admitting that is the wrong kind of feedback today. But I feel like I understand more specifically the things I need to do to succeed, which is murdering everyone.
In elaborate
And
ways.
it was a little harder to understand in the previous position, so.
I think that generally covers the questions that we received about running a hacking game. I think the important things to remember are be creative, have fun with it, don't be beholden to exactly how it happened in the show, make up your own stuff. I made up the navigatrix, I made up the receptionist, which I haven't even talked about. You can make up stuff on the fly, just use the same idea. The heart of the show is just this sort of mixing Dungeons & Dragons with corporate.
Yeah.
And how that interplay is funny and interesting.
I feel like one way you can look at it is you can take the vibe of your group, and you can choose whether to introduce this as with what flavor you think would resonate most with them. The corporate identity could be a little bit of The Office. It could be a little bit League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It could be a little bit, Justice League or Avengers. It really, the only rule, the only rote thing is there is a corporate entity. There are branches. Your group is in one. How, why, for how long, with what level of tongue-in-cheek or cultish devotion, that's all up to the context.
Oh my God, I am envisioning an Acquisitions Inc. franchise that is modeled after like a modern hip marketing firm. It's like the bard is like throwing out slogans in the middle of battles. Like, no, I can do that better. Give me another one. Give me another one. I can do this better. Like, we're workshopping it. Why are you stabbing me? Like, this would be great. I would love this.
Yeah, you have like a rapid fire pitch session, bring the client in, impress them.
What's the trendiest, chicest place in Faerun? Would that be Waterdeep? Never went there?
It's the most cosmopolitan, I think. Yeah.
But I think for today's clients, you need to go edgier. You need to go a little off the grid.
Oh my goodness.
You need to go to Red Larch.
That's it. Wow. Yeah, a branch in Red Larch, who would do that?
Yeah.
It just seems so counterintuitive.
I know.
This is my new PC, Drow Draper.
Oh, God. I shiver with terrible...
ickiness.
With terrible ickiness. That is very fair.
Ickiness and pomade.
All right, guys, let's pull it in and bring it home. We're going to rescue this podcast if it's the last thing we do. Thank you so much for joining us for the last 10 episodes. This is 11 episodes of the show we've made now, and you guys have joined us through all of them, been incredibly supportive, been very kind. A few of you have left comments on the iTunes page, which is really appreciated. Of course, anybody who does so, it helps us tremendously. We'd love to continue to get that support, and we hope that we continue to entertain you through 2018, and that this will be a fun year of merriment and hijinks.
Happy New Year, one and all listeners. We love you. And continuing with the theme of thank you, we would like to thank Vince Vept for our awesome theme music, Never Stand Alone, as well as the incomparable Amy T. Falcone for the lovely iconography of our cute chibi faces that adorn our Twitter page and our Podbean site.
Whenever someone comes up with a lit segue, I always just imagine their face saying the words, but with like amazing eyelashes. Like, boom, I can sell this shit.
There you go.
Answering your cues from our collective A's.
This
was
Insight
Check. Gonna go.
Get on your own.
Watch me go.
Here we go.
Here I go
Ready?
again
Set.
on my own.
So,
Down the
I've never known. Lord, I was born
favorite song. Oh, Aaron, you're the best.
Isn't that what you pay me for?
It is absolutely what I do. These bold mashups.
My identity, my branding. Anyway, Embers, please continue.